From the Battery Street studios of KCBS Radio in San Francisco, I'm Matt Pitman, and this is Bay Current for Friday, October 22nd. For many around the Bay, it started last weekend. The lights going out, power outages, especially if you live in the East Bay, from Richmond to Oakland, even in SF around Noe Valley. The first real rainfall of the season knocked out power. Last weekend, some 29,000 PG&E customers, concentrated mostly in the East Bay, were in the dark. So if you've asked yourself the question, how can a little rain cause widespread power outages? You're not alone. It turns out it's not so much the rain causing problems as it is the historic drought we've been dealing with all year. And should you stock up on batteries over the weekend? It depends on where you live, but the heaviest of the rain, and what meteorologists are calling the atmospheric river, is set to dump several more inches on parts of the Bay and Northern California over the weekend. So what's next? My colleague Jeffrey Schaub has been on the story for us this week at KCBS Radio. And a quick side note, it was a welcome surprise to actually see Jeffrey in the newsroom the other day. Our reporters are pretty remote, since news happens out in the world, right? Not inside a newsroom. But since the pandemic, there are people who a lot of us who are in the newsroom most days literally haven't seen in the better part of 2 years. Jeffrey came in to swap out some gear that needed a little TLC from our friendly engineering staff. And his misfortune worked out for me. He was just the guy I wanted to connect with and talk about the power problems in the East Bay. Jeffrey Schaub, in person, good to see you.
It's great to see you. It's been 19 months since I've been in this building.
Yeah, but I mean, I last saw you when we were up in Tahoe.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, we had masks on, and I think the only time we got to have just a minute to breathe, I mean, no pun intended,
was terrible.
In a very empty casino. So, in person, slowly but surely, we're getting back to normal. Speaking of normal, I think there's folks that are in the East Bay wondering when things are going to feel like normal again with their power situation. This first got on my radar hearing about and reading about the outages in Richmond over the weekend before we had the first kind of wave of the weather that we've seen. And now large parts, or lots of folks in Oakland, I think 7,000 was the high water mark as of, Wednesday, of folks that were temporarily without power. What's going on with the power outages in the East Bay?
So there's this phenomenon that happens every year around the same time after, a long summer where you've got, smoke and dirt and dust that accumulates on these power lines and transformers. They can actually, it sounds crazy, but they actually can conduct electricity. And we had a lot more of that this year, and particularly in the Richmond area, and I'll talk about that in a moment, but we had a lot of it this year because we had all that wildfire smoke.
Yeah.
And what happens is when you get a light drizzle, it turns all that stuff into like crud, like mud,
like gunk,
and that's what creates the electricity. PG&E routinely, they say, goes out and actually power washes these power lines and these transformers, but they got kind of hung up in Richmond. They got a problem in Richmond. They got a lot of equipment that needs to be replaced and restored.
A lot of equipment sounds like that they have to manage when that situation presents itself.
Yeah, and now they've said we're going to need to power wash a lot more equipment, and so that's apparently what they're going to do.
So more outages?
Well, no, the outages are really a product of the crud. Okay. It's not so much that they're power washing and turning off the power. That's transitory. So that's that could be an hour that they turn off the power because they have to clean the lines. But they need to upgrade their equipment in Richmond. Of course, Richmond's very upset about this. Yeah. The mayor, Tom Butt, very upset about it. They want to know what the heck is going on, right?
Yeah. So as we continue to deal with this, we call it the parade of showers this week and through the weekend, is that something that folks in the East Bay should be prepared for? Is that, hey, you may go without power?
We're supposed to get the heaviest rainfall in the North Bay, Napa, Sonoma, Mendocino counties. We could get up to 10 inches of rain this weekend. That's a lot of rain. You add wind to that. Yeah, they pretty much assume that there's going to be power outages, and they've sent out notices to people. We've received them here. Here's what you need to do. You need to have enough stuff on hand, food and water, prescriptions. You hear the old flashlights and lanterns. have a to-go bag in case something happens. So, yeah, they fully expect it, and they want people to be educated about that. But, yeah, if we have really bad weather, as we're supposed to have this weekend, yeah, I would bet there's going to be power outages.
We'll be keeping tabs on it. Jeffrey, great to see you in person.
Yeah, it's terrific.
We reached out to PG&E about what's been happening, how they're responding, and can anything be done in the future so that the first rain after a dry summer doesn't turn out the lights.
In September, portions of the Bay Area, including the East Bay, cities like Richmond and Oakland experienced widespread outages due to this phenomenon with the first rain of the season. And it wasn't really that hard of a rain, but that's when we started really beefing up the pole washing program to reduce the potential of these outages.
That's PG&E spokeswoman Deanna Contreras. Are you guys anticipating the types of outages that we saw earlier in the week as the rain gets heavier through the weekend?
We always want our customers to be prepared for possible power outages, no matter what Mother Nature brings us. So PG meteorologists are constantly monitoring the weather 24/7, and we create what's called a storm outage prediction model. It's a tool to help us respond to outages more efficiently and helps us know where the possible power outages could be based on the weather, based on historical data, based on a number of factors. The tool utilizes a wealth of data sources to provide estimates on the potential timing, location, number of outages that we could see during a storm event, and that helps us predict where the staffing levels are needed for quick, safe, efficient restoration.
I spoke with one of our reporters yesterday, and I called it gunk. He was using some very fancy term. You called it mud, but basically when you've got essentially the debris, are you guys able to work ahead in terms of cleaning those things off sporadically throughout the year to maybe avoid something like what has happened in the East Bay?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So during the dry season and the drought that we've been experiencing, that dust, dirt, salt accumulates on the power lines, and when that first rain arrives, light rain arrives, not even enough rain to wash off the lines. It turns that mixture into mud, which conducts electricity and causes these outages. And we tend to see this the very first rain of the season, but in the East Bay, we saw it a couple months ago, and that's when we started really beefing up our line washing program. We've already washed more than 2,000 power poles in the distribution system in the neighborhoods in the East Bay to get those lines clean. We've always had a line washing program to keep our larger electric transmission lines clean. So these types of outages we've been seeing on the distribution system serving the local neighborhoods, again, when the first rain arrives of the season. But this year, because it's been so dry and the drought, such dry conditions, we've been seeing this a little bit more, especially in the East Bay. So that's why we're really beefing up our line washing program there.
What is wildfire smoke in sort of just the tiny little particles that will accumulate over weeks and months during the dry part, the summer? Does that add something, a component where you have to be more diligent about cleaning?
Yeah, no, that absolutely does impact the dirt, the dust, the salt, and other substances that accumulate on the power lines and on the cross arms and on the conductors. We saw that after the LNU lightning fires and the glass fires last year in the North Bay, where it was smoke and ash and other things were accumulating, and that's why we brought in the line washing program and washed off the lines, especially on our transmission lines, to keep them clean. So yes, wildfires definitely do, all the particles in air definitely do accumulate on electrical equipment.
Thanks to Deanna with PG&E, and thanks to my KCBS colleagues Jeffrey Schaub for his reporting, and Sydney Fishman, who helped produce today's episode. If you haven't already, subscribe to Bay Current on the Odyssey app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen, and we are on YouTube. Find the Bay Current podcast on the KCBS Radio YouTube page. And thank you for listening. I'm Matt Pitman. Hope the lights stay on this weekend. We'll chat with you again on Monday.